and welcome to the Drive and Dish podcast. We're here for January the 6th. We're going to do our college basketball, our NBA picks, and our DFS plays of the day. A action-packed filled show. A little late today, but we were watching the Juve-Milan matchup, so we had to get that game in before we got on the air to give our basketball plays of the day. All right, so let's go over what happened yesterday. Our man Dynamite David went 2-2. Wins with Alabama -3.5, Kansas -5.5 versus TCU. Losses with Missouri -1.5, and Clemson -4.5. 2-2 brings him to 36, 39, and 1 overall. I went 2-0 on the day. Mississippi State plus the 1.5 versus Mizzou was a nice win. UConn turned out to be the better team, like I had thought. UConn plus the 1.5 versus Marquette with a nice road win there. Overall record on the year, 92, 76, and 1. So what do we got today? Let's start out with our man Dynamite David's picks. He has a big slate of games today. So he's going to start out with Ole Miss minus the 7.5 versus Auburn. Michigan -7.5 versus Minnesota. Tennessee minus the 9.5 versus Arkansas. Georgetown plus the 4.5 versus Butler. Xavier -6.5 versus St. John's. And Creighton -5.5 versus Seton Hall. So Dynamite David, big slate of games today. We'll see how he does on that set of games. All right, what do I have? I had 4 picks. It's down to 3 picks due to the George Washington game being canceled due to riots in Washington, D.C. So we're down to 3 picks today. We're going to start out with Pittsburgh plus the 11.5 versus Syracuse. Both these teams have been off a little while. Last time Pittsburgh played was a 10-point loss to Louisville. The last time Syracuse played was a December 9th game win in overtime versus Buffalo. So both these teams have been off a long time. I think that plays into a nice close game why these teams knock the rust off. So that's why I like that 11.5 point spread for Pittsburgh. I think Syracuse will be a little rusty. I don't know how much separates these two teams. Pittsburgh has won the games they should have other than a really bad loss to start the year at St. Francis, but has a good win versus Miami, Florida, beat an okay Gardner-Webb team, a really good win versus Northwestern. So they have some decent wins on their schedule. So I think Pittsburgh can at least keep this close. Syracuse has played their typical soft non-conference schedule. The only difficult team they played was Rutgers, and they lost that by 10. So I think Pittsburgh can stay with them in this game. So like the 11.5 there. We already said the George Washington game has been postponed. We'll move on to Wofford, -1.5 versus UNC Greensboro. Really good matchup in the Southern Conference. These are two of the top teams that'll be battling for the Southern Conference with Furman. So this is a really good showdown. Wofford has bounced back after a tough defeat versus Texas A&M, went to Mercer, won that by 13, played a weak Sanford team and won that by 10. So I really like this Wofford team. I think they are the ones that can challenge Furman for this. UNC Greensboro, a solid team, but I do think Wofford is a better team. UNC Greensboro with a tough loss to East Tennessee State the last time out. And East Tennessee State is not as good as they have been the last handful of years. So I think Wofford continues that and beats up on UNC Greensboro. But should be a good game if you want to watch a good small conference matchup, watch Wofford versus UNC Greensboro. They play some good basketball. And lastly, we got South Carolina minus the 3.5 versus Texas A&M. Like South Carolina here, Texas A&M has struggled on the road. Their last game on the road, they went to LSU, lost by 23. They went to TCU, lost by 18. So I think they will struggle going to South Carolina. South Carolina doesn't have much of a schedule, only played 4 game losses to Liberty and Houston. Not too bad there. A nice win versus Tulsa and a sort of get back win. They hadn't played since December 5th when they played January 2nd versus Florida A&M. So like South Carolina with Texas A&M's road struggles today. So those are my 3 picks. Let's move on to the NBA. Went 0-1 last night. Had to force a pick, and I knew Brooklyn would come out strong, and stupidly took the Jazz and got a loss there. 10-18 overall on the year. I got 3 picks today. We're going to stick with our poor defensive Washington Wizards. I think this game versus Philadelphia will be close and an exciting one to watch. So Washington plus the 6.5 versus Philadelphia. Next up, we're going to ride the Bucks minus 12.5 versus the Pistons. If the Bucks are playing a bad team and it's under 14, I pretty much will take them all year long. Just think the Bucks just annihilate these type of teams and look for them to annihilate the Pistons. So under 14, I'm always going to take the Bucks versus a very poor team in the Detroit Pistons. And lastly, we're going to keep riding these Warriors. Got off to a slow start, but they've been much, much better of late. Clippers are on a back-to-back. We'll see if Kawhi goes on the back-to-back. Paul George set out yesterday. So Golden State plus the 1.5 for the LA Clippers. All right. So let's move to some DFS plays of the day. Point guard wise, let's look at Stephen Curry, who's been red hot and on fire at $10,000. Great value there. I think you got great value in 3 guys right up top. Curry, who's been on fire. Trae Young and Ben Simmons both have really good matchups. Versus Charlotte, Trae Young should be able to get his mojo back. He's been a little off the last couple of days, but I look for him to have a bounce back here. And Ben Simmons versus Washington should dominate a very, very poor defensive team. The other person I'm looking at is Malcolm Brogdon, who's a little bit cheaper and a little bit down the way here at 8,200 versus Houston. That's a really, really good matchup. And a little further down the slate in price-wise, I think you can get away with Terry Rozier versus a poor defensive Atlanta Hawks team. Look for Terry to have a real big day versus probably the worst defender in the NBA in Trae Young. So Terry should have a pretty big day here. And Goran Dragic always carves up Boston pretty good. So look for that to continue. And at 6,100, there's pretty good value there. I couldn't really find a great value really far down here in the really cheap territory. I didn't see anybody I thought was a guaranteed point-wise, but anyway, we'll move on to the shooting guards. What do we like in shooting guards? Zach LaVine, definitely a play today versus Sacramento. Had a good game versus Portland, hit the game winner or the game sealer. Let's go with versus Portland yesterday. Should bounce back and score a lot on these Sacramento Kings. But I think this is where your value is. There are a lot of guys down here who are medium price that I think you can get away with here. Colin Sexton, without Darius Garland, it's his show. And at 7,100, still a lot of value there. I definitely ride Colin Sexton today. Tyler Hero, who had pretty good games versus Boston in the playoffs. Look for that to continue. I continue to ride the 3-point threat of Buddy Hield and Seth Curry at 5,200 and 5,100 respectively. And my 2 really cheapies, Tyrese Halliburton should have a good game versus a bad defensive team in Chicago. And DeLon Wright would be my must play if you're looking for a cheap spot. Without Killian Hayes in there, DeLon Wright should get a lot of those minutes. Look for DeLon Wright to play a lot of those minutes. So DeLon Wright at 4,100 should be a big play today. And if you're looking for sort of a really cheap minimum price sleeper, Mihaljuk for Detroit, he comes in, shoots a handful of threes. If this game's a blowout, he might get a handful of garbage minutes and be able to score for you. But shooting guard wise, I think you could get away with going definitely in the middle tier here and getting yourself some points and some advantage there and saving yourself some money for the other groups. Like small forward, because there are 2 guys I like really at the top. Brandon Ingram, I definitely go with versus OKC. He should carve up OKC and really, really have a really good game here. Jimmy Butler versus Boston, really like it. This is the kind of game the Heat should get up for. So look for Jimmy to have a good game. Gordon Hayward versus a poor Atlanta defense at 7,700. Pretty good value there. I go with Mikael Bridges at Phoenix. He's been having a great season. His price still hasn't gone up too much. He's been scoring in the 30s at 5,500. That's a pretty good deal. I'd look for Joe Ingles and a lot of the Utah guys to bounce back after a terrible showing the other day versus the New Jersey Nets. And lastly, Isaac Orko at 3,600. With Darius Garland out, Orko should get a majority of those minutes and play really good. So don't be scared to use Orko today. I think that would be a really, really good value play there at 3,600. So let's move to the power forwards. I think you have to use Giannis today. Detroit has no one who can match up with him. So I definitely try to slip Giannis in there at 11,400. I know it's really pricey, but I think he will get value there today. If you're looking for a little bit cheaper, Sabonis versus Houston should carve them up really good. And I expect Zion to have a pretty big day here versus OKC. So those are two much cheaper options than Giannis. You save about $3,000 there. So Sabonis and Williamson, I don't know if they'll get to the 50s, but Sabonis has been pretty close to getting to at least 45 to 50 there. And Zion has not. But if there was a day he was going to break out, I definitely use him here. In the cheaper category, Bouchard for Toronto keeps getting more and more minutes, and he's draining threes. So look for Chris Bouchard. He's starting to get a little bit overpriced at 6,200, but I would still definitely use him. PJ Washington, we're going to milk that Atlanta Hawks poor defensive matchup all we can with these Charlotte guys. So look for PJ Washington to have a pretty good day. Bobby Portis should play pretty solid minutes in a blowout in Detroit, I believe, and he should be able to get some numbers. So at 4,700, pretty decent value there. Nick Batum, if Paul George or Kawhi Leonard's a no-go, you get a lot of value there. He's been playing pretty solid, and at 4,400, pretty decent value there. If you're looking for somebody else, Dario Saric at 3,800. DeAndre Ayton hasn't been playing good. Saric has been coming in as the backup center. If Ayton continues to play sort of poorly, look for Saric to come in when Toronto goes small. So those are some value plays on the power forward side. Lastly, let's move to the center. I think Joel Embiid must play today versus a terrible Washington defensive team. Thomas Bryant will get lit up, but if you're looking for a cheaper option, we used him the last time when they played Cleveland. Vucevic will once again have a pretty big day versus poor Cleveland and Andre Drummond. Bam Adebayo versus Boston destroyed them in the playoffs, so look for that. And we're going back to the Utah well. We think they'll bounce back versus New York today, so look for Rudy Gobert to have a pretty good game. Two more cheaper options, though I would not advise going cheaper on center today. I'd stay up top in that top tier, definitely. But Steven Adams has been a pretty consistent double-double. So at 5,500, you might be able to get 30 points out of him with a 10-10, which is about what he's putting up right now. And I just feel like it'll be a good James Wiseman day. So look for James Wiseman to be able to get about 25 or 30 fantasy points today. And at 4,800, pretty good value there. All right, what are we staying away from? I'm staying away from John Wall. I think Malcolm Brogdon and that Indiana defense will be able to contain him a little bit. I wouldn't want to spend the money on John Wall when I could spend it on Simmons, Young, or Curry, or drop down and spend it on Brogdon just below him. Bradley Beal, I'm staying away from. Just don't like the matchup versus Ben Simmons. I mean, he'll get his points, but at 10,000, I think there are better options at shooting guard in a cheaper version, and you could save money there. So I'm going to stay away from Bradley Beal. In the small forward territory, I'm going to stay away from Kawhi Leonard until I know if he's going to play or how much he's going to play on a back-to-back. RJ Barrett, I'm not touching versus Utah today. I look for Utah to bounce back really big, so I wouldn't touch RJ Barrett today. Next up, Christian Wood in the power forwards. I just don't like that Indiana matchup. I think he'll have trouble with Sabonis and Turner. So I wouldn't touch Christian Wood today, though he's been really, really good. And now his price is up to 9,100. So I don't think the value is even there anymore, especially when you could get Randall, Sabonis, and Williamson all cheaper, and they all have been scoring more than he has anyway. And lastly, Ayton, who has been struggling for Phoenix. His price is down to 7,200. So he's dropping. He still puts up solid numbers, but until that price hits about 7,000 or goes under 7,000, I stay away from DeAndre Ayton. All right, those are our DFS plays of the day. That's our show. Be sure to follow all our podcasts on greenlightnetwork.org or wherever you download your podcast. I am GLN Champ 5 at Twitter and Instagram. That's our show, and we're out.